Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please remember to like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, all those kinds of places. And please subscribe here on YouTube as well. Help the channel and the podcast grow because we love doing this. We want to keep doing it as long as we can. And we love the mighty Villa. And to be honest, it's been about 2 weeks since the end of the season. And I miss it. I miss Aston Villa. I miss watching us all the time, considering how amazing it was this last season and how amazing it is all the time under Unai Emery, and it no doubt will continue to be. Just kind of can't get excited about like the Champions League final. Couldn't get excited. I can't get excited about the Euros coming up at the moment, just because I keep just wanting to follow Villa and see what we're going to do with our transfers, with the way Unai Emery might adjust the squad, might you might get hints as to what it is that he's going to work on for next season, whether we might have a new formation, whether there might be something that he identifies, let's say from about January onwards when we were conceding quite a lot more goals than usual or than we were before. Particularly with crosses into the area aerially, we were struggling a little bit against bigger sides at times. So just to wonder whether he's, going to identify that as something that he looks at and goes, this is just who we are, this is how we play. And not going to really change anything too drastically, or whether he does decide to bring in a player maybe who's a bit taller and might be able to just win a few more headers. It's just fascinating to know what we're going to do this summer. But there has been today confirmation from Fabrizio Romano, the transfer guru, who seems to be well connected to what's going on at Villa. Him and Miguel Delaney quite often seems to be two of the journalists who seem to be most in tune with what's going on there. Whether they have contacts with Monchi, I have no idea. But basically, Romano has tweeted today that Aston Villa have reached a verbal agreement with Luton Town to sign Ross Barkley. Understand the fee will be around £5 million. Final part needed, medical tests and players' formal signature. Agreement on player side expected at the beginning of July. Here we go soon. So I think the Barkley signing, should it definitely go ahead once it's confirmed? I mean, 5 million in today's money's it's not a lot, is it really? I really don't know how tight Villa are on PSR, but all I know is going off various reports you're seeing, reported in the press that Aston Villa have to be mindful of it, that it is probably quite tight, and therefore probably can't just go and spend big bucks without having to make some sales as well to go with it. So I think that if you think of it in that context, if you think of the Ross Barkley that we signed a few years ago, it was a very different player to what we're bringing in now. A couple of years ago, he came in and he was, a talismanic player, a player that we saw as somebody who should be a bit of a talisman for us, particularly leading us in attack. Grealish was obviously the main attacker, but Barkley was someone that we probably saw as coming in who could be close to that sort of a level. And he'd come in from a Chelsea side where he'd been a Champions League player. So maybe there was a part of him that it was difficult to not feel wanted by the club that had signed you for a lot of money. It was difficult probably to be probably forced to go out on loan to an Aston Villa who at the time had only just stayed up by the skin of our teeth. So, he started very, very well at Villa, but it came off the rails, didn't it? From about December onwards, November onwards from there, where there were just games where it looked like it couldn't control a ball, couldn't make a pass. Just an extremely weird, poor displays. But like I said, I think at the time, you're probably looking at a player whose confidence levels were low anyway, and he was required to do a role where, like I say, he had to be a leading character within the squad. Whereas now, you're signing a different player. Luton Town, he was much more a deep line midfielder. I'm sure lots of us have seen the highlights videos of the Arsenal game where he was fantastic. I think they lost that 4-3 in the very last minute, but he scored a goal in that game. But he was absolutely brilliant in that game against the best pressing team in the Premier League in Arsenal. And what he demonstrated in that is that playing deep, he was so good at withstanding the press, getting around players, his back to his own to the Arsenal goal. So he was able to turn under pressure and then get away and force a pass, forward to one of his attackers. I think that in itself is probably, showing what he can do. I've watched him a lot this season. I've watched a fair few Luton games, and in every single one, I thought it was quite heartwarming to see, he'd refound his confidence. He was a different player to what he was a few years ago, and that he was demonstrating on a consistent basis the level that he can get to, the level he really can play at. There were games this season where he looked absolutely fantastic, and it was heartwarming to see that he got regular game time at Luton, and heartwarming to see him, fulfill the talents that he has and has always had. So I understand the reticence among some of the fan base as to why. So, some might be wary of him coming back after last time, but I think of it in a way that we're signing a different person. He's probably matured a few years. He has matured. He's a few years older now. We're signing a different player, and he's coming into a different Aston Villa. Again, at the time, we were Dean Smith, and it was a different environment back then. He's coming in now to Unai Emery. We all love Sedin. Sedin, I want to see the man get a statue at Villa. He's a fantastic coach, but the reality is that Unai Emery's a more accomplished coach. I don't really want to say better, but he's more. Look, he's won 4 Europa Leagues. He's got teams to Champions League semi-finals. He's got Aston Villa into the Champions League. So Unai Emery is a very, very special coach, and Ross Barkley is coming in to work with him. And if Unai Emery, Monchi, and that scouting department have seen something in Ross Barkley with what he did at Luton this season, I think that's a player that can come in and contribute at Aston Villa, then that wins the debate, really, doesn't it? If Unai Emery wants it, who are we to argue? And Unai Emery in the past, if you think back to his time in La Liga, he has had a tendency to work with players who were slightly unfashionable, players who perhaps were cast adrift or had sort of not coming from sort of the trendiest backgrounds, or maybe been somewhere before and it not worked out. And he tended to work with them, get the absolute best out of them. Think of someone like an Etienne Capoue at Watford, Villarreal, someone like that. He was just he has something with those types of players. Emery, there's something that maybe his personality, it just clicks with players who need a bit of an arm around the shoulder and to be, do have all that talent, maybe didn't express it somewhere, and that Emery is able to bring it out of them. And if Emery sees something in Ross Barkley, you've got to believe that he can perhaps bring something out in Barkley that we saw at Luton. Maybe can be even better in that deeper role at Villa. And bear in mind the summer as well, you've got to think about versatility, right? Two key things. If we're tight on PSR, as the report suggests, you got to think this is a canny, smart signing because it just adds to that squad depth. 5 million quid is not a lot of money, is it, in today's footballing world? And wages we'll need to find out. That we don't know what they are. We don't know the length of the contract either. But what Barkley can come in and do is that if you think about it, towards the end of this season, it felt like Louise and McGinn were playing a lot in that centre midfield. And eventually, you're just going to run these guys into the ground if next season, and I talked about this on the look ahead, which was just a jokey year-long look ahead. It was obviously all of those opinions are going to change over the next 3 months as we see what happens this summer everywhere across the Premier League. But we are going to face next season, without question, is a pretty brutal first half of the season where we have 8 Champions League games, and you're going to play a lot of real high quality opposition. And we're going to exert a lot of energy in those games. And if we were just to continue to play McGinn and Louise constantly, with Tielemans as well, obviously, and Boubacar Kamara sadly is injured, by December, those guys are going to be already pretty worn out, and then you've got another half a season to go. So the idea, I would assume, is that you could have, say, like a Douglas Luiz or a McGinn starts in centre midfield, deeper, and then half an hour to go, throw Ross Barkley on, somebody who can just hold on to that ball, withstand a press, and see a game out for you. And again, same in the Premier League. Maybe Barkley could start a game. And who knows what's going to happen with Conor Gallagher as well. That's a name we've been heavily linked with. I would love that signing. And again, like Barkley, versatility. Gallagher can play in that CDM role as well as that attacking midfield role. Barkley, I think, would be more of a. I think he could. He's not an out-and-out CDM, but he could probably sit deeper, like what Louise has been doing since Kamara got injured, and play alongside. Say if Gallagher did turn up, or McGinn if he was playing a CDM, and then again he could probably play as a second striker, same as Louise, same as Tielemans. McGinn can play as a second striker. So the versatility and the movement you can have with these midfielders, that it makes sense really to bring him in. So I understand some of the reticence, after what happened last time, but I think we've got to give him a chance. And you have to, if it's good enough for Emery, it's got to be good enough for us, hasn't it? And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Emery sees in him. I think we all saw it at Luton last season. I thought he really had a lot of really excellent displays in a new, deeper role in midfield. But I'm excited to see what Emery saw in those displays that he thinks he can get out of him this season, and what he thinks he can, the level that he thinks Barkley might be able to reach. And who knows, he might really, really come alive at Villa in his second spell. I think I think it's a canny signing, within the remit of PSR and within the remit of a player who has Champions League experience, international experience, Premier League experience, all of those things. Someone who can come in and just be that squad player. Essentially, is he replacing, say, Roadbunham? I think it's smart enough, and let's see what else happens this summer, and see where we go. I'm sure there'll be movement in and out, but I think there'll be an exciting time ahead. And the Conor Gallagher one, Conor Gallagher links again. That was Miguel Delaney reporting that in the Telegraph. I would think of that. Keep an eye on it, is how I would think about it. Only be going off the fact Miguel Delaney reported it, which makes me think there's probably something to that. And I think Gallagher, were that to happen, I just can't see why that would be a bad signing at all. But I'll talk a bit more about that next time. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. So it looks like Ross Barkley is happening. 5 million quid, as Fabrizio Romano reports, and I am about to go on holiday. So about to go to Corfu in Greece. Never been to Corfu before, so if you have any tips, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much, everyone who watches this, who chats below. Comment below, let me know what you think. I love interacting with everybody. Yeah, let me know what you think of the signing, and what you think Villa needs to do this summer with their squad. If anything happens this week with Villa, I obviously won't be able to do anything about it, because talk about it at all, because I'll be on me holly bobs. But other than that, I'll be back next week, and there'll be plenty of content coming. I'm going to try and really ramp it up in the next weeks and months. So thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Up the mighty Villa.